Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So today I want to share my highlights from a chapter in The Most Important Thing Illuminated by Howard Marks. I've already shared a few chapters on this channel, but today I want to talk about awareness of the pendulum. Now, this concept is something that's easy to understand. It's really easy to forget when we're in these different cycles of the market. So, part of why I'm sharing this today, I really want to drill this into my head, and I hope you find it useful as well. So the chapter begins, when things are going well and prices are high, investors rush to buy, forgetting all prudence. Then, when there's chaos all around and assets are on the bargain counter, they lose all willingness to bear risk and rush to sell, and it will ever be so. The mood swings of the securities markets resemble the movement of a pendulum. This oscillation is one of the most dependable features of the investment world, and investor psychology seems to spend much more time at the extremes than it does at a happy medium. The pendulum also swings with regard to greed versus fear, willingness to view things through an optimistic or a pessimistic lens, faith in developments that are on the come, credulousness versus skepticism, and risk tolerance versus risk aversion. The swing in the last of these, attitude toward risk, is a common thread that runs through many of the market's fluctuations. And it talks about the inevitable hallmark of bubbles is a dearth of risk aversion. In crashes, on the other hand, investors fear too much. Excessive risk aversion keeps them from buying even when no optimism, only pessimism, is embodied in prices and valuations are absurdly low. So, value investors looking at these extremes in the market, bubbles, the bottom when there's blood running in the streets, there's, people think, there's no safety at all in the stock market. These extremes in thinking actually produce the opposite effect, right? Bubbles, when people think prices are only going to go to the moon, that's actually when there's greatest risk of losing money, okay? When everyone's running away from the stock market, thinking this is clearly a scam, everything is going to go to zero. That's actually when prospective returns are highest. So, it's interesting that it's actually the opposite of kind of the market psychology is true in these cases. I've recently boiled down the main risks in investing to two: the risk of losing money and the risk of missing opportunity. It's possible to largely eliminate either one, but not both. Okay, this is a very important point here. In 2005, 6, and 7, with things going so swimmingly and the capital markets wide open, few people imagined that losses could lie ahead. Many believed risk had been banished. Their only worry was that they might miss an opportunity. Since they weren't concerned about losing money, they didn't insist on low purchase prices. And this is the same kind of investor activity I'm seeing with companies like Apple, with companies like Tesla. Price no longer matters because clearly these companies are so great that prices can only go up, right? That's the psychology. Then in late 2007 and 2008, with the credit crisis in full flower, people began to fear a complete meltdown of the world financial system. No one worried about missing opportunity. The pendulum had swung to the point where people worried only about losing money. So they ran away from anything with a scintilla of risk, regardless of the potential return. So the last several years have provided an unusually clear opportunity to witness the swing of the pendulum and how consistently most people do the wrong thing at the wrong time. And this is a huge opportunity for people who can maintain rational behavior. So we have the three stages of a bull market. The first, when a few forward-looking people begin to believe things will get better. Okay, that's how a bull market starts out. The second, when most investors realize improvement is actually taking place. The third, when everyone concludes things will get better forever. And I know, guys, these seem ridiculous, right? These thoughts seem ridiculous, but it's so easy to slip into this mindset, okay? That's why we need to keep reminding ourselves as value investors that this is human nature to think this way. And it's easy to get swept up into this. Let's see. Let's talk about the three stages of a bear market. The first, when just a few thoughtful investors recognize that despite the prevailing bullishness, things won't always be rosy. The second, when most investors recognize things are deteriorating. The third, when everyone's convinced things can only get worse. Okay? Let that sink in. Let these lessons sink in. And I highly recommend getting a copy of this book if you don't have one, The Most Important Thing Illuminated by Howard Marks. I'll just finish it out with the last paragraph here. There are a few things of which we can be sure, and this is one. Extreme market behavior will reverse. Those who believe that the pendulum will move in one direction forever or reside at an extreme forever eventually will lose huge sums. Okay? Those who understand the pendulum's behavior can benefit enormously. And that's why, in interviews with Howard Marks, you'll hear him talk about things like, this is a time for prudence, for caution, right? He was saying that recently. If you look at recent interviews with Howard Marks in 2019, in 2020, now is a time to really focus on risk more so than the possibility of missing out, right? So I think that's one of the keys in terms of what has made Howard Marks a very successful investor, is he understands these swings. He understands roughly where we're at in the market cycle. And if he has a sense we're at sort of a beginning of a bull market, he'll maybe be less cautious and swing more for the fences. And when he senses, things have been really good for a while, and there's signs that people think it can only get better from here, there's all this euphoria in the markets, that's when he'll really start to put on his lenses, where he looks at his portfolio through the lens of, okay, where are the risks here of losing money? Where are we maybe not being cautious enough? And that's certainly where he's at now. He wasn't necessarily in that same place at the end of March or in April. But my sense of it is that he's, seeing that there's a lot more downside risk right now than there is kind of room to grow. So just wanted to share that chapter from Howard Marks about the awareness of the pendulum. It's a key learning in terms of, Warren Buffett says there's really two things to understand if you want to be a good investor. One is how to value businesses, and I talk a lot about that in other videos. The second one is understanding market psychology, trying to understand Mr. Market and kind of the irrational swings, the emotional swings of Mr. Market. And that's really what this chapter is getting at, awareness of the pendulum. So anyway, guys, that's all I've got for today. Let me know if you want me to cover more chapters in this book, The Most Important Thing by Howard Marks. Seriously, guys, I listened to this book on Audible the first time I read it, and I had to buy the book after listening to it on Audible because I knew I had to take all kinds of notes. It seemed like every other sentence was a gem. And, you know, Howard Marks, you know, he gets a lot of praise from Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett says, when I see memos from Howard Marks in my mail, they're the first things I open and read. I always learn something, and that goes double for his book. That's what Warren Buffett had to say about this book. And Warren Buffett doesn't give a lot of, you know, praise, or I think he may have even given the foreword. No, he didn't get. Bruce Greenwald gave the foreword. But Buffett, you know, this is one of his top recent investment books that he's read. So highly recommended. All right, guys, I will leave it at that, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.